This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories.
And welcome to my review of Legacy of the Force Invincible. And I've been intending to do this video for a few weeks. I just haven't had the time to go and dedicate to talk about this really, really great novel. I'm going to go into my criticisms of it first, which primarily go with its ending. And I feel like this book needed another few chapters because it just feels like the book needs to wrap everything up, and it does it in like I think it's a chapter the longest, maybe a few pages, but it is just all very, very briefly wrapped up at the end where they're just like, oh yeah, and then there was a virus released on Mandalore that is targeting Boba Fett's bloodline, and that the wars ended, and Natasha Dal has been made chief of state, and the entire piece has been done, and then Alana has survived and is being adopted by the Solos as their adopted daughter, who they're not going to admit is their actual granddaughter. But this specifically is just all done really, really fast. It feels like they just needed to get all these points in, and they couldn't make the book any longer for whatever reason. So they just had to do this, but it just honestly made no sense to me, and I feel like it just needed to be a little longer. But besides that, and also I think Chihiri's redemption also being really really done really fast, because I feel like the entire character of her in this just felt like a really rushed storyline and something that was tossed in at the last minute. I think that it just that's just one of the only things that I didn't love through this entire storyline. I think it does get some interesting stuff in the Fate of the Jedi series, but here it just feels so rushed. It feels like they just needed an apprentice for Jason, and they decided, oh, we'll use Tahiri. I guess that's the best character. But really, besides that, honestly, I think that this novel was just an incredible story. I read, I think, like the last 100 to 150 pages in an afternoon because I was reading and I was like, you know what, I just need to finish this. And I just went through the rest of the book. I just thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed the story that was written here. I think that everything was really great, and now to go into the storylines, everything with Ben, honestly, it just makes him even more tragic. He loses one of his really good friends, the captain in the guard, and he is tortured to death by Tahiri, where her being kind of horrified at what she did is what pushes Ben to go and to try and redeem her. And as I said, it's a really rushed storyline, but at least does make some sense. Ben going and really just showing maturity for his age was also really great. Well, really, all of the Skywalker solo children in this continuity just show a maturity far more high than what it is for their age. Because I think in this Ben is 15 or 16, and I guess at the latest he may even be 14, because I think the events of this take place over maybe a year. If it's a year, maybe 2 years, which is also kind of a funny comparison to the sequel trilogy, just how insane things went over this and how much they managed to accomplish, while the First Order basically did nothing over a year, and the sequel trilogy just feels like a minor blip in the galaxy. But that's also a completely different video. And just going through this, it is honestly just super interesting to see just how Ben has to go and to take these adult responsibilities, and he is still really young in this. It feels really bad for him to go see his friend die and him to be have to go and age up and mature this much. And really going through everything, Ben was a really solid character in this. Him escaping just shows his ingenuity and just how well Jason trained him that he was able to escape from a facility that Jason wasn't under control of, and from Jason's current apprentice, or more accurately, Kitus's new apprentice. And just going through this, it was just really interesting to see as he escapes and returns, and everyone felt really bad for leaving him behind, but he understood why, and that it was something they had to do because they would all have been killed or captured trying to rescue him. Just going through the rest of it, it is just really it's just hard to look at as you have to see the team up of Jaina, Han, and Leia to go and kill Jason, since Jason's Han and Leia's kid and is Jaina's brother. It it's something where they're convinced this is the right thing to do because they believe that Jason they know is dead, and that's the thing I love with this, that Jason really doesn't get his redemption. He has the motivation of him turning to the dark side, which he does stick to protect his family, and that does work with this where Jason does go and he is ultimately able to stick to those goals of wanting to protect his family even though he hates it and starts to realize, yeah, maybe I'm going too far, but he still just decides to double down on being a Sith Lord and just goes to prevent these more violent and crazed outbursts. But just going through it, it was just truly fascinating to see as Luke is playing this game of just psychological warfare on him. Luke wants Jason to think that, yes, I am going to go and come after you for revenge for Mara, using Kitus's fall to the dark side and him wanting to believe this to cover up the fact that it's Jane that's been sent to it. And I want to break down those scenes specifically where Luke goes in and talks about how, yes, he realizes that he needs to kill his nephew and how hard of a decision it is, in a separate video comparing that to the absolute atrocity committed in The Last Jedi, because it is genuinely going to be interesting to look at those two scenes in comparison, because here Luke is talking about just how hard it is for him to go to a decision. He has to talk it out and realize that if he did go and try to kill Jason, he would fall to the dark side. He is the only person he could guarantee with 100% certainty that could go and kill Jason. And that this is something I think the audience would think about, like, yeah, that Luke is way more powerful than Jason, and he would be able to easily beat him. But now that he knows that Jason is responsible for Mara's death, he knows that trying to kill him, even if he has the rest of intentions and goes to take him alive, he knows that he'll get into a situation where he'll give into his anger and want for revenge and become a threat far more dangerous than Darth Kitus himself, as he would have to give into the dark side to go and kill his nephew, because it's just something that he can't emotionally detach himself from. And Mara's death just seriously hurt him. And I just love how he's using these projections, which, surprise, didn't kill him for, like, overexerting himself, to psychologically mess with Jason to make him think that Luke is coming for him. And honestly, I'm just realizing just how similar this is to The Last Jedi, but actually is way, way, way better. It is really, really funny when I sort of think about it, how he goes with this force projection technique also to mess with his nephew who's fallen to the dark side, and it doesn't kill him. This is like, I mean, this came out about, I think about like 10 years before The Last Jedi, and it did the story just way, way better. I mean, it was also really funny when I was reading the back to war just like about a day and a half, 2 days ago from when I was recording this, and Corin Horn was talking about, oh, it's a really stupid thing to do to try and use the Force without proper Jedi training. And I mean, I laughed even harder because that was like 20 years before The Last Jedi, where that's what Rey was basically doing, and I just really can't believe how these are just going and making all these funny points against the sequels. But that's just a completely different topic. It's just so funny to think about, and I really can't believe just how little they thought when they made that movie and decided to let Ryan Johnson do whatever he wanted. Okay, let's get back on track with this. But going with Jaina and her hunting down Jason, it is it was something just honestly super tragic from just really everything because she has to go and she has to kill her twin brother, someone who's been with her since the day she was born, and it's just it's really rough to read in terms of just what she has to do, and then just everything with her with the Fett family. It is just super interesting how they really don't have she doesn't have respect for them. They don't have respect for her. Besides Mitra, who does see her as a friend, but yeah, basically Boba Fett is Boba Fett, and it's just super interesting to see here. I think it was just fascinating to go and just see what was going on. I just really enjoyed it. The entire attack they had with the first attempt on Jason, where Jason loses his hand, and that's just a great Skywalker bloodline tradition to happen. Was just really interesting, and then him going to the end where Jaina absolutely obliterates him, and he realizes that the virus to be used against Salon is going to be used, and he essentially knows he's dead. He could either go even deeper to the dark side and, well, try and take down Jaina with him, but he decides the only thing to do is to save his daughter because even after all he's done, he still loves her. I don't see this as an act of redemption. I see this as him still clinging on to the one thing that turned him to the dark side. A small amount of light that's in it, but I still see him as just as the monster he became, and that Jason Solo truly was dead. And I just love that he dies as the villain, even though he does a small good thing to save his daughter. He is not redeemed at all. He has fully fallen to the dark side and is a monster at this point. And it's just really nice to see because we just can't have everyone who turns to the dark side be redeemed. It's really not realistic and it doesn't need to happen. And it was just a brilliant ending for the character. I really enjoyed it, and his ultimate death was a very satisfying moment where you see a monster killed, but also he has managed to gain his a small amount of redemption, but that is really just him doing something to save his daughter and not go and ultimately take vengeance. It does show he did have some control and restraint, but it also shows that how the dark side corrupts someone. And just thinking of this series specifically, I think it's a really interesting fact that this basically goes and destroys the concept of Grey Jedi to anyone who would, well, like that idea. It shows him going and using the dark side for noble means, and, well, this just ultimately leads to him committing absolute atrocities. He is not a good person, and in this, he even goes and he executes Prince Isildur to go and ensure that his daughter's gonna be safe because he was just trying to send him back to make sure that this virus wasn't made. And it was ultimately a pointless death because they already took the blood sample from him, and he killed him literally just so the virus wouldn't be made. Because, well, Isildur couldn't trust him because Jason was a monster. And just going through this, it was such a great series. I am so glad that I finished it with over enough time to be able to read as part of the EU read through I'm going through. As I mentioned, I just finished up the Back to War, and I'm currently on Right Squadron. I'm so glad I finished the series before I got around to Legacy. Well, sorry, Fate of the Jedi. I keep mixing the titles up because they're so similar, and I'm just really glad that I'm there. I finished this, and I'm going to be able to read that series for the first time. That and Millennium Falcon with the full context of everything that happened during the events of the Legacy of the Force series and about Jason's downfall and Mara's murder and everything. Since one of the primary motivations for that is to find what could have helped push Jason towards falling to the dark side, and honestly, it's just fascinating. I really enjoyed the story. I think that they just really did a great job, and honestly, I just want to know what you think because, as I said, I really, really enjoyed this. I think that the novel, besides those few things at the end where also Jack taking over the Empire, that's also really briefly rushed over. There's all that, all the stuff that's rushed over at the end. I think that needed another chapter, maybe two, to go and break it down a little more. It could have been slightly longer, but as I said, really, besides that, I thoroughly just enjoyed this overall. I think they did such a great job, and I want to know what you think. Please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories.
Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.